Thank you this morning. Thank you to the choir, to Director Kim, for that beautiful anthem. How many of you are familiar with the song, Mary, Did You Know? Yes, it is an unexpected Christmas hit, but did you know that it only exists because a set of parents once chose to believe in God's potential for their outcast son? Mark Lowry was the author of those words you heard this morning, and he penned the lyrics in 1984 when his pastor in Houston asked him to write in something to fill in between the songs of a Living Christmas Tree choir presentation. Mark had begun singing in preschool in church, and by third grade he was singing the lead in the Easter Christmas pageant. But he was not only recognized for his talent, Mark was also recognized as being a major problem in school. I don't know about you, this sometimes reminds me of my own journey or watching my own 2-year-old up here this morning, but Mark Lowry suffered from hyperactivity. He had too much energy. He was a ball of energy. No one knew what to do with it. And at a very young age, he was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, and he was put on medication in grade school. He was a problem for all of his teachers, and though he was born in Houston, Texas in 1958, it soon became clear early on in school that Mark had absolutely no athletic ability. Now that was quite weird for a Southern boy at that day and time, so he was ridiculed. He was really outcast by his friends at school and made fun of because no matter which sport he tried, he never found anything that he could do. But Mark Lowry's parents chose to see his overabundance of energy as a blessing and a gift. And so they encouraged their son to sing and to perform, and they drove him all over wherever anyone would give him an invitation to do just that. So when a pastor asked Mark to help him write a Christmas cantata, Mark wrote questions that a journalist might have asked if he were interviewing Mary. There was no tune to his questions at that time because he had asked a friend to write one, and what the friend came up with didn't impress him much, and so he put these lyrics, this poem, in a drawer for many years. 4 years later, Mark was asked to join the Gaither Vocal Band, one of American Southern Gospel's most famous and successful groups. 2 years after that, in 1990, musician Buddy Green also joined the band, and Mark had an idea that Buddy might just be the person to help him complete this song that had been in his heart for so many years. But he didn't want to ask Buddy directly. Instead, he wrote a note at the top of his lyrics which said, "Hey Buddy, here are some God-inspired words. Please add some beautiful music." And I think you will agree that Buddy Green did just that. Michael English, a former Gaither Band member, recorded this song in 1991, and it was soon picked up by other gospel and country singers like Kathy Mattea, Kenny Rogers, and Rascal Flatts. And even artists from other genres like Natalie Cole and pop artist CeeLo Green have recorded versions of this Christmas carol. In fact, this is the world's first Christmas carol contributed by the Southern gospel tradition, and it was written by an unlikely outcast. Mark was a strange man. He became a comedian. In fact, you can still see him. He tours the United States today. But Mark's parents chose to love his energy and his uniqueness, despite what a weird, unathletic, over-energetic kid they had. And because they saw something special in him, Mark went on to write this very special song about a very special mother. Today is the first Sunday of Advent, and this season I would like to invite you on a musical Christmas journey. I hope to use a different carol each week, like Mary Did You Know this morning, to highlight a physical journey that we can take together to Jesus' birthplace. The Christmas story is one of the oldest and most well-known stories on the planet, and even people completely unassociated with the Christian religion or with church could probably tell you some of the main elements of the story. A virgin mother, a stable birth, shepherds, wise men, and angels. This story has always brought unlikely people together, but sometimes its very familiarity may keep us from fully grasping the riches. So this year, I want to use music to help unpack some of those riches. And I know that music often means the most when it is grounded in a story. So we will study some of the little-known facts about the Christmas story, focusing each week on a specific place. Today's location is Nazareth, a tiny village about 50 miles north of Jerusalem and 25 miles west of the Sea of Galilee, located in modern-day Israel. We are much more aware of the town of Nazareth than the people who lived there thousands of years ago when our story takes place. You see, a first-century Jewish historian named Josephus recorded the names of 45 Galilean towns, and Nazareth was not among them. Nor was it mentioned in the list of 63 Galilean villages in the Hebrew Talmud, the companion to the Torah, the first 5 books of our Old Testament. Nazareth, you see, was not known in its day, and it's estimated that the population was perhaps 100 to 400 people or less. And you thought the town of Lyons was small. The Nazarenes were farmers. They were shepherds and laborers who lived in caves dug out of the soft limestone mountains. They walked an hour each way to the closest city, which is mentioned in all of those original texts, and it was named Sepphoris. Now, Sepphoris had about 30,000 people, and the excavated ruins today show many luxury villas and exquisite tile mosaics in those homes. It was an affluent city with culture and shopping. But back to the little village of Nazareth. Nazareth is thought to have been founded a few hundred years before Jesus' time by refugees, people who came to the area looking for work and a new start. They found a stream of flowing water and began to build a little village there. And today in downtown Nazareth, a Greek Orthodox church of the Annunciation stands on the stream at the spot where some believe that the angel Gabriel visited Mary while she was drawing water to share the news from today's scripture that she would bear the Christ child. Of course, like any legendary story, people disagree about the facts. Roman Catholics think that Gabriel visited Mary in her home, which was a cave several blocks away. And in 1969, the Catholics built a basilica on that spot called the Basilica of the Annunciation. And at the front of the church near the altar, there's a hole in the ground where you can look down into the cave or the grotto that they say was Mary's original home. Either way, whether she was by the stream or in her home, it seems like Nazareth was about to make it onto the map. Like Mark Lowry, Mary was an unexpected choice for such an important role. She was around age 13 or 14 when Gabriel visited her, most likely uneducated and from a relatively poor family, which might even have worked as servants in the rich households of Sepphoris. Her people were simple people, hardworking and without pretense. They remind me of some of the founders of our own town and some of the original citizens who lived here. But life then was much tougher than it is now, and life expectancy was less than 35 years of age. So girls were considered women when they had their first menstrual cycle, and they got engaged quickly thereafter. Following a year-long legal engagement, there was a formal ceremony to seal their marriage, and women then began having children. 1 child per year was expected every year of marriage. Most women simply prayed to survive these very dangerous labors and deliveries. It was during this year-long engagement period that Gabriel came to Mary. She had already become a woman, and she was waiting and preparing herself for her marriage. Mary was not afraid when an angel appeared to her. I don't know how we would react today if that same thing happened to us, but when he called her favored one, and when he said that she had found favor in the eyes of the Lord, that is what scared Mary. That is what confused her. That didn't make any sense with her own understanding of her identity up until that point. She was a poor girl from a forgettable little village living in a cave, and now an angel was telling her that she would bear a child that would rule the nations, a child that would be the Son of God. And her only question was a very good one. How can this be? Gabriel's answer must have calmed her fears and her doubts, because he said nothing is impossible with God. And in her short 13 or 14 years of life, Mary must have already learned that lesson well, because her simple response proves that she really was full of grace. Here I am, a servant of the Lord. May it be so. You see, grace has the power to change hearts, to heal broken relationships, to reconcile people to one another and even nations to one another. But what is it? What is that spark of grace that Mary was so full of? You see, grace is God's kindness and blessing, God's love and care and work on our behalf, God's saving goodness as a pure gift, which we cannot and do not and will not ever be able to deserve, but a gift which has the power to transform us and our lives. I often wonder if Mary wanted to be married. Have you ever asked yourself that question? I wonder what it felt like. You see, God's favor in Mary's life was not a blessing. It was not a promise of bliss and prosperity and fame and good fortune. The visit from the angel Gabriel meant a huge scandal for Mary and potentially death. Adulterous women in her age were stoned to death without mercy. But God's blessing through the messenger angel Gabriel was surely frightening, and it meant for Mary a huge risk, a life of risk. It required her to give up her hopes and her dreams and her plans for her own future, and to offer herself wholly and wholly to God's plan. She trusted that she would be taken care of, and she was willing to risk everything to follow God's path for her life. As scary and unexpected as that was, Mary had hope, the focus of our first Sunday in Advent, hope for the baby which would grow within her, hope for a marriage unlikely to succeed in the midst of such scandal, hope for a better life for herself and her child. Mary carried her hope alongside her grace, and in doing so, she showed for us a most humble and perfect example of how we should respond to God in our lives. No matter who we are, or what unforgettable little Nazareth village, or what important mega city that we might be from, God has a plan to use us. No matter how different or strange or outcast we may feel, God looks at us and sees people full of grace and potential. May we this season be watchful for unexpected opportunities in our own lives. May we be hope-filled and ready to respond to God's unlikely call in our hearts. And may we open ourselves to the danger and the beauty in risking our lives and our plans for God as we quietly and earnestly say, "Here we are, Lord. May I and my life be exactly what you want for me." Amen.
Amen.